This is the Everything Weight Loss podcast with Shari Ware, where we talk about everything, all things, anything to do with weight loss, health, and wellness. So today I have Kobe Gowland, who is the founder of Level Minds based in Sydney. Throughout her life, she's been fascinated with the mind and how we can optimise its function to live our best lives. Definitely something I'm into. Kobe holds a Diploma of Clinical Hypnotherapy and Strategic Psychotherapy from the Institute of Applied Psychology. She is a member of the Australian Hypnotherapy Association. Kobe has a passion for helping people achieve their goals and realise their full potential, which is why high-performing individuals seek out her expertise. So first of all, let me welcome you to the show, Kobe. Thank you for joining me today.
Thanks for having me, Shari. It's lovely to be here.
Awesome. So the very first thing I always start with people usually is asking them, there's a reason why we do what we do, and it's usually tied up in our own personal story. So what's your story? Why do you do what you do?
So over the past 3 years, I've been in the health and wellness industry already. And on that, I went through a bit of a transformation, a bit of a journey through my own personal development, really kind of going from, motherhood and raising 3 children to back into working and figuring out what it is I want to do. And I worked out that I absolutely love helping people. So from a wellness perspective, I've been helping people, and I became really, with lots of personal development myself, I became really quite obsessed with the human mind, its potential and capability. And I think that so many people just don't have the right tools to push themselves forward in life. So hence that's why I'm here, and I became kind of obsessed with the brain and learning more. So I formalized my studies and launched my online clinic to help people make the changes that they want to make in life.
Awesome. So I really love this question, and some people say, oh, I don't think I have one, but everybody does. If I was to ask you if you have a superpower, what would it be?
My superpower is definitely helping people and empowering people to see the habits that they currently have and to make those shifts in little habits in their life to help them move forward. That's hopefully where my ultimate superpower is. You can say that about yourself, but we'll talk about imposter syndrome in a second.
Yeah, definitely. And that leads us into really what I really wanted to talk to you about today, because I know that it's something that I believe it's something that you specialise in, imposter syndrome,
Yeah.
is that right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So what do we need to know about imposter syndrome? I know that it's definitely something that I've experienced in my life a lot.
Exactly. So let's define imposter syndrome first. It really refers to the internal experience of believing that you're not as competent as others perceive you to be. So while this definition usually is narrowly applied to intelligence and achievement, it has links to perfectionism in a social context as well. So imposter syndrome usually affects high achieving individuals, and you'd be surprised at how many hugely successful people really don't feel like they earned the praise that they receive. So, people like Meryl Streep are famously talking about their experience with imposter syndrome. She's an Academy Award winning actress, although still feels that she, lacks confidence in certain areas and doesn't know whether those accolades should be hers. I know Albert Einstein's quite a famous one that had those feelings of imposter syndrome. And even more recently, I listened to a fantastic TED talk given by Mike Cannon-Brookes, from the founder of Atlassian. And he went into his imposter syndrome experience. So it's definitely something that is quite widespread in society. It's definitely something that we all experience at some way, shape or form in life. But what the thing is that really we want to break it down into being aware. So kind of taking a step over and saying, okay, those feelings have actually come up. What does that mean? And what are those feelings? And we always have to look at, the human mind has approximately 60 to 70,000 thoughts per day, and those thoughts kind of relate to feelings that we might be having. Often what happens is, and what I see a lot in practice, is that people don't have a tool to define, is that feeling valid? or is that real? And what's the validity of that thought? So what we need to do is, one, be aware of those thoughts and feelings that pop up. And then two, to check the validity of those thoughts and feelings, not necessarily against your own feelings, but against either external evidence, and really kind of diving into why that is the way that it is, but also what can I actually do about it, and harnessing that environment. So, you know, often, and I heard Mike Cannon-Brookes also mention this, that successful people don't question themselves, they actually question their ideas. And that's healthy, right? So we've got to take the idea that we're having and kind of check the external environment and talk to other people about it, and really like validate what is actually going on and how you could potentially improve that if you feel like you don't have those skills. So, you know, it's the key is to, you know, not freeze in that situation where imposter syndrome might kind of rise up, but really harnessing it as a force for good, and taking advice and knowledge from others, and also being, you know, okay with constructive criticism to try and kind of get the best out of what you're trying to do.
Very interesting. Okay, so just say you're working with somebody with imposter syndrome. What's the first thing you do? What's the first step in the process?
Generally speaking, I try and get the client to be super aware of that feeling or thought that comes in, even to the point of actually acknowledging it and writing it down. Sometimes in our mind's eye, when we take that information and we put it down on a piece of paper, the first thing you can ask yourself is this valid?
Yeah.
Is this useful? And then what is my most useful option in this situation? So to really have like a 3-question set that you ask yourself when that feeling comes into play. The other thing is we try and, I mean, in hypnosis, I try and give clients a tool so that they can kind of take the thought or feeling, which is emotive, and create a visual around that thought or feeling. So we might say, imagine that thought or feeling is, you know, a red balloon, and you can let it float off into the distance if it's not serving you at that moment. So it's giving hypnotic tools in a different way. And when we talk to our conscious mind like that, that's a little bit hard to understand. In our subconscious mind, that's when it can kind of click in and we can make those changes. But key is, firstly, is to acknowledge. Secondly, is to kind of throw some questions at yourself and get that external validation. And 3 is put it in perspective. So if you're already super successful and you have that evidence that you're already doing very well, you can have your own doubts, but it's really kind of saying, am I adding value in this situation? Am I doing something that is useful in society or in the environment or with my workplace, or whether it be in that relationship or whatever you're applying it to? And then differentiating the feeling from a fact, right? So what is that feeling that's bubbled up, and what fact could we place around it? Is that real or not? The other thing is to reframe the thought. So this is a fantastic tool. Is when I said to you before, you could write down that thought or feeling that bubbles up. So it might be, some people with imposter syndrome might say, wait till they find out I've got no idea what I'm doing. You'll tell yourself, everyone starts to feel kind of off base in the beginning. I might not know the answers, but I'm smart enough to find them out.
Yeah.
So kind of shifting that mindset and actually reframing that thought process. So another example of that is, oh my God, everyone's brilliant here, but I'm not. And you could reframe that to be something like, wow, everyone here is brilliant. I'm going to learn a lot from them.
Yes. Yes,
it's tiny little shifts. Yeah, it's little shifts, like in our linguistics programming, in the way in which we reframe things and think about things from a different perspective. So the brain is very, very powerful, and tiny little shifts like that can make a huge, huge difference in the way in which you're thinking and feeling.
Yeah. So you said when you were talking about if you're already super successful, then you can reframe it this way. What about if you're not super successful? Is it the same? You do it the same way, or do you have any tips for somebody who's on their way to being super successful but they're not there yet?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the key is to identify the feeling and talk about it if you need to. That's also a very important factor, is actually open up and accentuate the positive. Like, what is it that you're trying to do, and why are you trying to achieve it? Like, what your goals might be. And then look around you and actually gain information. So if you're not where you really want to be yet, how can we harness information from other people that have been successful or in that environment? But a lot of the time, imposter syndrome really refers to someone that's, that is actually concerned that they feel like others don't believe, or their experience isn't what others perceive it to be. So, yes, certainly if you're not feeling that yet, and you're not in that success mode yet, then it's just, keep building the blocks, make sure that you're putting one foot in front of the other and continuously adding to your experience and what you can bring to the table for other people. And also the same things apply, really, is that awareness, the reframe if necessary, and really, not paying or making sure that the fact versus the feeling is very much differentiated. We have a lot of feelings, and sometimes those feelings aren't necessarily true.
True, that's right. And even just by asking ourselves the question, is that true? It makes
Yeah.
us stop and think, oh, okay, well, actually, maybe that's not true, or maybe that's not entirely true.
Yeah.
Definitely a really good question to be asking. So, how do you see this impacting people in their lives the most? What kinds of, how does it impact their life?
Very much, people can become withdrawn, start to have feelings of anxiety and or go into depression as well. So this is something quite serious that it needs to be addressed, and it's very much that, on the lighter side of things, we can certainly capture those thoughts and feelings and kind of interrupt those negative thought patterns. And yes, that's definitely, it can kind of cascade into, feelings of or hopelessness, and certainly feelings of anxiety and overwhelm that build up, and I don't want to do this, or I can't do this, so I'm just not going to do it, and then people give up. But the future hasn't been written yet. Your life hasn't been written, and it's kind of up to you what you decide to do with your future, and what you want that to look like. So visualization is a really, really important thing to do. It's really thinking about those future goals, what you want to create, what you want to achieve in your life, and how that can affect and help other people, and affect and help the society around you, and making sure that every day you're doing that one thing that is going to lead you towards that success and that goal. So I would say that. So yeah.
Okay. So what do you see? Just say somebody has got imposter syndrome. Maybe they're aware of it, maybe they're not really aware of it, because there are people out there who they have these thoughts, but they don't realise that it's a thing. What are the biggest mistakes that you see people make when it comes to imposter syndrome?
The biggest mistakes I really see is people not acknowledging that they're in control of their own mind and their own health. That's the biggest thing, that sometimes we really put it down, and I put it down a lot of the time, to habit. So we only know what we know, right? And a lot of people start their life and they are taught a certain way of doing things. And everything that I do with clients is I really look at their habits and their patterns, and I look at every action that they take in the pattern that they run in their life. So really breaking down your own habits and really looking at why and how you do the things you do is crucial. And I don't so much worry about the past and what's happened. It's really about where you are today, how you're running that pattern of behavior, or those habits that are leading you to the result that you're getting. And if you're not getting the result you want, you have to take those steps to go back into the habit and really make changes and shifts as to how you're doing that particular behavior. And then you can make the change necessary.
Yeah. People don't understand how much habits drive our life. That's, really a big factor. And there's a reason for every single thing that we do. It's not because there's necessarily something wrong with us. It's just it's serving a purpose, doing it the way that we do it. So it's about finding different ways to do it and get the outcome that we want, isn't it?
Absolutely.
So that's the biggest mistakes. What would, if there was one biggest thing that they can do? So say they've got imposter syndrome, they're really struggling with it and they haven't done anything yet. What would be the thing that's going to get them the biggest result that they could do?
I would say write it down and check the validity. So check if it's true or it's valid, and that might mean getting okay with constructive criticism, getting okay with hearing other people's opinions, but what you do with that information is key, right? So are you going to improve yourself after that? Are you going to take those necessary steps? And sometimes what we're doing is we might be feeling that, but we just need some more knowledge, information, or tools to get us to that next step. So learn those tools, arm yourself with knowledge. The library is open for us to read and inhale and get that information to ourselves. So the key is it's up to you, and it's up to you what you choose to do with that information. So I would say to everyone listening, you are the architect of your life. You are the designer and the creator. And the chapters ahead of you are unwritten, so you can write them and you can design them the way you want them to be.
Awesome. Okay, so how do you what's the person you specifically or you generally work with? It says that you high performing individuals seek out your expertise, so what kinds of people are they?
I worked with CEOs of companies. I've worked with people building their own businesses. I've worked with just people wanting to make a simple habit change as well, whether it be quit smoking or changing a lifestyle habit. So it's quite broad and reaching. I essentially love to help people kind of put themselves on the right track to their success. And going back one step with what you asked before, I would also say that don't wait to feel confident to put yourself out there. Sometimes the world is everyone's oyster, and you've just got to have a go, and you'll only fail. The only failure you've got is if you don't try at all. So just fail forward, get involved, have a go, be the woman or the man in the arena, and put yourself out there. There's nothing really else to lose.
No, that's how we learn. The only way we get better at doing things is by doing them.
Exactly.
How we get confident, we've got to push ourselves out there to do that. That's awesome. All right. So there will be some links that I can share with you to be able to connect with Kobe further if that's something that you would like to do. If you'd like to talk more about the subject of imposter syndrome or anything else that she helps people with, I will put them in the show notes. I have one question I generally like to ask people as a way of ending the episode, and I think you've probably already touched on it, but it was really good and I'd really love to end the show with that. So, Kobe, if there's one thing that you want people to know, what would that be?
One thing. I've touched on it a little bit. But yeah, I would say just don't wait to start. Don't hold yourself back. Don't wait to start, have the courage to put yourself out there, and all that courage comes from taking those risks and changing behaviors first, and really kind of, getting involved will allow that confidence to continuously build. So just, don't wait to start, have a go, and you'll learn and grow as time progresses.
Awesome. Just take that next step, hey?
Yeah, that's it.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining me today, Kobe. It's been lovely having you on the show.
Thank you so much, Shari.
Awesome. And I will see you all on the next episode. See ya.
Bye.
Thank you so much for joining me on this episode. Remember to check out the show notes, and if you have any comments, feedback or suggestions, I'd love to hear them. If you've received value from this podcast, make sure to subscribe, and I'd love you to rate and review the show. Have a fabulous day.